Hey guys, well, I'm here with my friends Sam and Chasidy, and as I've gotten to know them over the last couple of years, it's been really, I guess, inspiring, insightful, and has helped connect me a lot, specifically with Jesus' message about caring for orphans and widows, which is like the loving people and caring for orphans and widows are like the central message of a lot of what Jesus instructed us to do, and so they've agreed to just have a conversation and talk a little bit more about what they do because I find what they do to be, again, really inspiring. And so we'll do a little bit of back and forth, but I just want to open the conversation to you guys. Can you guys just share what exactly is you do, a little bit of the story maybe about where you've come from and some of your experiences?
So yeah, so I'm Sam. This is Chasidy, and we work with widows, orphans, just the downtrodden, the beat up, the people that are outcast and forgotten, and the homeless, mainly the homeless. So what we do on a daily basis, we go out into the city of Dallas and we just look for people. We search under bridges in areas that are uninhabitable, abandoned buildings, literal creeks, the woods, yeah, just places like that. And the people that we encounter have just, usually they're dealing with some sort of trauma, some sort of abuse, and they've been cast out from their family. It's a lot of times, I would say 90% of the time, we're dealing with drugs or alcohol. And then once they're out on the streets through drugs and alcohol, mental illness comes in. I mean, obviously, you're kind of mentally ill if you're sticking a needle in your arm every day. And we've both came from that background. For me, just, drugs, mental institution, rehab, prison, county jail, car wreck, those kind of things. The story of just an addict. And I got radically saved in jail, in county jail, thought, going back to prison on another felony dope charge. And the Lord really encountered me in that place and forever changed my life. And it was... Yeah, so we're just giving back to those people that were once like us.
Yeah, we just have a burden.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a burden for the hopeless and the broken because we know that there is hope.
Amen.
And that God can change the lowest of the lowest. Like we see it happen all the time. So my story is that I was addicted to drugs. Towards the end of my addiction, I was homeless on the streets. The depths of depravity that we see daily, I didn't necessarily go to that low, but I did sleep on the streets. I was digging in the trash cans, things like that. And so... my addiction was heroin. And so when I go out there and I meet people that are addicted to heroin, I just have compassion for them. I don't see them as junkies or whatever people want to label them as hopeless causes or whatever. I don't see that. I see somebody's child. Like even people that have mental illness, like the Lord has helped me to see that this person at one time was somebody's baby. Mm-hmm. It could be someone's grandmother. It's someone's daughter, someone's son. Like they are people and they just need help. And one of the, I don't want to use the word cool, but one thing that I've noticed, one thing that I've noticed is that some of the mentally ill people that we see, their family is just at a loss and they just don't know how to help them. And I think it's really cool how the Lord introduces us to those people, and we just get to become that next person in their life that gets to love on them and help them. There's been many times that we've called their family and their mothers just cry because they're thinking about them, and it just blesses them to know that there's somebody else that's stepping into the picture and trying to love these people right where they're at.
Have an answer.
Yeah, because I mean, there are some times that I'm just like, there's nothing that I can do, God can work a miracle, and that's, what we pray for and ask for. And, but in the meantime, we just love them right where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what we really, what I like to what I've labeled what we do is I call it relational evangelism,
which is a lot different than what people may be used to when it comes to homeless, ministering to people who are in that place.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. A lot of people, in the United States, I don't see any starving homeless.
That's eye-opening.
I don't see. I just don't. What they need is to know that they're not forgotten, that they're not, that there isn't hope, that they're. I say this all the time when I pray for them, or I just tell them. I'll look them in the eye and I'll say, "Look, you're not stuck. There is help for you. You can come out of this situation. You don't have to be where you're at." And even to get to that point, though, for me, it took a year and a half one time to get someone's name. This is very much the long game.
Meaning that you spend, maybe unpack that a little bit. You spent a year and a half
intentionally going to an area, seeing this person, and at first they were so, for whatever their reason was, be it drugs, be it mental illness, be it paranoia, be it, whatever their situation was, at first they would run literally away.
Oh.
And then little by little, they got a little closer. It's like a feral animal sometimes, I hate to say it that way, but they're, they've lived on, these outskirts of society for so long, they're almost feral. They're, it's very much animalistic behavior. I might go into that, but anyway, so they come a little closer, and then one day I'm able to hand them a bottle of water. A bottle of water. And look, for your, great evangelist out there, the bottle of water has done so much for me, man, as far as breakthrough. And our victories. How was your day, Sam? How was your day, Chasidy? It was a good day. The guy that has ran away for 6 months now trusted us enough to get a bottle of water. We never spoke. He didn't want prayer. But he received. And just little by little, and going out there and just being seen daily. Can
I speak into that?
Sure, it gets a lot of breakthrough.
So just to talk about what Sam was saying, when I first started going in my mind, I'm like, I'm here to tell them about Jesus. And so I would do that. And what I learned was these are pastors' kids.
Wow.
These are people that have been raised in the church. And that's not what they want to hear.
Right.
They want to know that you're coming to just love them.
Yeah.
And so we don't necessarily even talk about that in the beginning. Like we just learn them and just who they are and what they like, and we target those areas and we talk about those things.
Yeah. Amen. And like she was saying, So many people have been hurt by the church, have been hurt by the Christian example in their home. You know, Christianity to so many people growing up that we encounter was going to church. Christianity was going to church. And it was, cuss their children out, pull their hair, you better mind, set up all this stuff to get into the church. We're running late, you idiot, all those things. And then when you're about to walk in the door, one final pinch and it's, hey, put on a smiling face. We're here at church. And you walk in church and you do the church and you do Christianity and you leave and you cuss each other out on the decision for lunch. And these people, they were never modeled Christianity. And another thing, they a lot of times believe they're okay with God.
Yes.
Because they walked the aisle, they prayed the prayer, they got wet one day. They even have the picture of them, the water baptism on the mantle when I was 12. And everything about their life is contrary to that. But somebody in their past has told them they're okay. And their life is in shambles and all that. But the point is, right, relational evangelism, the first word. We are there to build a friendship and a relationship with that individual without any agenda that they know of, right? The agenda is Jesus and to get them off the streets and to life change. But if those things never occur, we're still there. We're still there. And usually, so what we do, we'll juggle 15 to 20, if you will, people
that you'll just hone in on.
That we so we've looked for, we've found the people of peace in that area, if you will, right? Somebody that's open, somebody that's willing to talk, somebody that's receptive, somebody that is just nice or friendly or whatever. And, we'll kind of make a joke in between ourselves and we're like, oh, that's one. We got one there. We're going to start going and start seeing them and visiting them. And usually it's not, it's 4 or 5, 10 visits or whatever it is. And a lot of times they got a little dog and, their dog's name and what.
Dog food.
Yeah.
Bring them dog food.
Oh, absolutely. Bring them dog food. And cat just, food. Now their history a little bit and you're a little more, and names are very important. They're just saying their name, hugging them, man. They haven't had a hug in 10 years because they're filthy and they're nasty and no one wants to, man, I'll get right in there and just hug them. And
Sam will actually sit. Sam will actually sit. Okay, so when we go into some camps, they have it set up like a home.
With no roof.
No roof, yeah. They have a tent, and then they have their living room with a couch and the rug, and he will sit. I mean, and it's not the cleanest, but he will sit.
It's absolutely filthy, but I'll lay down with him.
Yeah,
I'll lay down on their couch.
And he will, if they offer him anything to eat, he'll eat whatever they give him. And
they'll be cooking, just
Whatever.
third world, on their little open fire and just you can imagine. I mean, it's radical.
Yeah.
And you want something? Yeah, man, I want something. I want something. Yeah. But that's just building relationship and it's building trust. And through that, because for me, I grew up around church, right? I didn't grow up in church, I would say, but I was there. And I was there enough to know that, someone told me I'm good. I'm okay. You're okay, And then once I started getting in high school and whatnot, and, I was very rebellious the whole time, but I got away from church and I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought, but go ahead. What?
Well, yeah. So if I were to segue that for a second, so I think the part that you're talking about right there is the major is a major important part for people to understand about this story and kind of why what you guys do is so important. And if I were just going to highlight again, like there are a lot of organizations and stuff that are involved with people who have needs, but the majority, probably all of the organizations that I've seen, the strategy is pretty systematic. You come in, you see a need, which would be, like you said, food, but there's no starving homeless that you've really seen in America. So come in and give food, give water, give clothing, and then they're out. Yeah.
Yes.
But the major emphasis point, is how worthy of affection is someone that you guys would pick 10 to 20 people and just intentionally spend that much relational time with people who've been in an environment that feel is normal, maybe.
Sure.
Or I guess just talk about that.
Well, I knew where I was going. Just let me finish up on that real quick. So no one, I didn't for me, and the majority of people that I run into that they're mad at God, that they've been hurt, they've been abused, they've been by their, whoever in their life, right? They don't want you to come in day one and you're wrong, I'm right, let's do something about your life. And, just with that mentality, that brings about some very hard questions, hard statements. And we're there to build relationship. We're not there to, you're wrong and all this, the first, nothing like that. But if somebody would have befriended us while we were doing something similar, you would be way more apt to listen to a friend. Yeah. And you, as a friend, you can bring up some hard statements and hard questions. And we'll juggle 15 to 20, like I was saying, at once, while still looking for other people of peace, we call them. And usually whatever the relationship entails, like I said, year and a half to get someone's name, but usually it's 4, 5, 6 meetings. And you might take them to McDonald's, and we took some to Golden Corral, and hey man,
we don't know what that is.
Okay, Golden Corral
buffet.
Golden Corral is like this buffet that serves everything, and it's not all that, but it's like, hey, I'll take you anywhere you want to go eat. Golden Corral. I was like, buddy, we're going to Golden Corral. And we've had more breakthrough at the table, I believe, just like Jesus did, than anywhere else, man. And just being their friends. And through that relationship, man, we're able to bring people to a fork in the road, is what we like to say. And that fork in the road is, we're either going to get you off, get you into a better place, or we're going to stop being as intentional. But if we see that person, of course, we're going to, hey, how you doing? All that. But we're a little less intentional, and we'll pick up someone else. But yeah.
So I was going to say that the resources, like the clothing and the food, it should always just be a tool. Amen. A tool to start the conversation with the person, because the issue that we've found is, there's an abundance of resources for homeless people in our area, as such as food and clothing. There's tons of places that either come out and give these things out. So that's not where the lack is, or that's not the issue that needs to be addressed with the people that we work with. It's a heart issue. Yeah. Like, these people are broken and they're lost. The drug is the solution to them, to the problem that's going on internally. And so that's really what we do, is just focus on that internal problem on the inside of them and try to help them as best we can to address those issues while we're on the streets, to get them into a place where they can get long-term help counseling and shelter and stuff like that.
I think that's a really important part that, as I feel like a lot of the world is moving towards is getting more involved now with how do we actually kick in and help. Like we had this series of like a couple of years where people got really internal, and now I think people are starting to crack that cocoon. And so I do hear when people want to get involved with the biblical mandate to care for orphans and widows, a lot of people are writing checks, I guess, to places that they'll write a check to provide a resource. And I think that paradigm is really shifting. I think that after talking to you guys, like truly understanding America's a really wealthy country.
Yeah.
And when I went to Nicaragua, I saw people who were literally starving.
Yes.
Like they didn't have
Yes.
access to food. And so this form of relational care, I think, is probably the most misrepresented portion of caring for people who have needs. And in the Luke 10, just to clarify for people, that comes from the man of peace concept comes from Luke 10, which is his blueprint for caring for people and ministering to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
First, you speak peace to someone, then it returns to you.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the resourcing part that you just said. So you guys told me a story once about you had an individual that you got all the way out of this process, and then you've had some people who, in the midst of getting all the way out, have turned around and gone back in,
Yes.
which is part of the unfortunate reality.
Sure.
But the reason why I bring that up is to bring up the emphasis of how important it is that people find a friend.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I don't know if that's a story that you want to share any of
Sure.
at all, but just highlighting the relational nature of this.
Yeah. So we're so quick, I believe, in the West, the church in the West, to write a check, to tithe, to do those things, and to not even think about the person that we're supposed to be helping.
The emphasis is on the stuff, not the person.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And we'll have phone calls, and this is how, for a lack of words, it's just terrible. We'll have phone calls, and they really believe that we are the pound.
The pound?
The pound for people.
Wow.
We have this individual in our neighborhood. Will you please come get him?
Oh, wow. So you're talking about this is people, not the homeless person.
Sure.
This is people who are calling in to have you take away the homeless person.
Yes,
Wow.
absolutely. Because they're an eyesore. They're a drag. They're they don't want them there. And I get it. I understand. But man, we're dealing with people.
Yeah.
We're dealing with people. And
Which, I'm sorry, just for a half second. Which I think more people probably have those actual feelings than we feel comfortable admitting.
Yeah.
Outside of you guys have lived there and you have a heart for there, I think there are a lot of people that if they really pause to think about coming face to face. I remember I was walking with you in downtown Detroit. I hope you don't forget your train of thought.
No,
I was
it's all good.
I was walking with you guys through downtown Detroit last year. And I was talking about the city. I'm like, man, what a great city. And then I started saying things like, yeah, we used to have so many homeless people around and now we don't, and blah, blah, blah. And you asked me several times, you're like, well, where are they? I'm like, oh, I don't really know, blah, blah, blah. And then I said this several more times and you're like, Nate, let me ask this a different way. They didn't just disappear. So where did they go? And that put me face to face with feelings that were really uncomfortable, which is that I had also dehumanized this group of people.
Sure.
And when you get face to face with that about yourself, it is an opportunity to shift. But anyway, you guys forced me to look at that. So,
well, praise God.
Yeah.
Amen. But and I think it's no fault to individuals. I believe that we've, as the church, we've just audibled, if you will, to the state. And the state, is really dropped the ball, and it's and so I think, no knock to us, or not us, but collectively Christians, we just don't know how. We don't know how. We know how to, to do an altar call on Sunday morning, but we're talking about people that if they walked in 90% of the churches, they would have the police called on them, much less come to the altar, brother.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, to touch on your what you said a minute ago, just like, yeah, it's relational, like and really like pro-life, right? Are you pro-life from the womb to the tomb? Mm-hmm. And are you willing? I believe that's why Jesus ate with sinners, and he sat at the table with sinners, and he walked with people relationally through his life. It wasn't like this one and done meeting. It was the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak, and getting raw and real with people, not only in their worst, but you've got to train them up out of that real discipleship of walking that process. And sometimes an infant, a baby, falls flat on their face. But we need to be there and pick them up instead of kicking them while they're down. And so we've had many people. I myself am like a, how do you say it? But it took me a lot of times.
Getting all the way out, you mean?
Yeah, just, I'm going to do it this time. And I meant it every time I said that. But I had no support in my life, especially the support people need. I believe, and I pray this a lot over people. I pray the Lord brings them into a group of people that look like them, that they can relate to, that they aren't, your 70-year-old widow woman in the back of the church, that's their peer now.
So, and you're talking specifically about when someone actually gets out of that environment, that when they come out on the other side of it, that their only friend is what you just talked about, the 70-year-old lady who doesn't look like them, who's back there. And so some of your guys' journey too, when you were talking to me around the fire once upon a time, now I'm talking like you. So you're
getting a good southern accent, by the way, Nate.
You talked about how you guys target 15 to 20 people who you feel like you can build relationships with.
Yes.
And then you walk with them to the point where sometimes you have access as a friend to challenge them.
Absolutely.
And to open up new doors. Yeah. And then you also talked about how if you have the opportunity to challenge them, I'm just highlighting the scope of this thing. Right. Like you guys drive people in cars to get food and then to get showers and then to walk through getting jobs. And then after they're out, you're a friend to them when they're out trying to make it.
Yes.
Like this really is just highlighting, like this really is like a long-term friendship.
Absolutely.
You guys are walking into.
Yeah. This isn't some flippant deal where we're just, talking about, helping someone on a, whatever. This is a lifelong commitment. And I believe we see this in Scripture. This is the mandate. What does it look like to help the poor, to help the orphan, to help the widow, to help the downtrodden, the outcast, the prisoner, right? What does that look like?
So I didn't even know the wording that you just used now. I'm just now realizing the full scope of this when you use the word lifelong commitment of this. I'm just now.
Sure. Sure. So, I found these two brothers in the woods, right? And about 12 years ago, their parents died. They were, both of them are mentally challenged, handicapped. And after their parents died, they just didn't know. They didn't know how to do anything. So they became homeless. And they were homeless about 11 years.
And how old were they when their parents died?
Older. So they were, they were in their late 40s.
Wow.
Still living at home because they were mentally challenged.
Wow.
Their parents did for them, right? And I found them in the woods. And it took me about a year for them to trust me enough to kind of get in. Whew. Because for so long, everybody they came in contact with would use them and abuse them.
To the extreme.
Oh, you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
Two mentally ill brothers, and they have nobody, and they get a government subsidized check for their mental illness, or I'm trying to be politically correct in the word, but they're
handicapped.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so just the sweetest people, good, sweet people, man. But they just, they're, and so I believed that one brother most definitely, this is a very rare thing, was environmentally addicted to drugs, to methamphetamines.
Okay.
Because he was in one of these, vast majority of people in the Dallas area use methamphetamines or heroin. Methamphetamines is so prevalent that it's almost like cigarettes on the streets. Everybody does it. You just kind of say, are you doing heroin also? Kind of thing.
Can you flesh out environmentally addicted for a second? Just a small.
Sure. So it's so prevalent that it's almost like a social thing to forget about where you are and how you are.
So because of that environment, people just kind of naturally drift into it.
Oh yes, and it is so the drug is so cheap in Texas now because of the border situation and whatnot. I mean, it is any and everybody are doing it, and it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic, but environmentally, meaning they were not drug seeking. They didn't have the mental capacity to be drug seekers, but they would have people around them that were using, and they would just get it from the people next to them, literally.
To be a part of.
Yeah.
Just to be a part of, you're saying just turn that.
Yeah, just to be a part of what's going on around them.
So kind of like we would see liken it to like social drinking.
Yes.
But in this case, it's something way harder.
Yes. And then the neighborhood that they were in is a pretty rough neighborhood.
Yeah, obviously. But so I befriended these brothers and got them off the streets. And about 2 months after I got them off the streets, the older brother, he was 63, James died. And just some heart complications and all that. But his younger brother, Chris, did say, at least he didn't die in the tent.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but James was still struggling, right? You're looking at 63 years of abuse, trauma, internal conflict, right? That needed to be dealt with. And he would have, a couple weeks of sobriety and go back out. A couple weeks of sobriety and go back out. And it was just that wrestle, that internal wrestle. But the Lord did tell Chasidy that, we shared the gospel with him, just prayed with him in their capacity to understand. And the Lord did give us peace that James was okay, in heaven. And so, but now we have Chris, right? And we've really built something with this guy.
And Chris is actually, James was the more James took care of Chris.
Yes.
He
Wow.
was his payee. He was the one that did everything for him. Chris is a little bit more
Just slower.
slower. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so now we have Chris in a boarding home with some people that are like him, and they have a caretaker there that cooks for him, cooks 2 meals a day for him, and really checks on him. But every day, Chris is 53 now, or 54, and every day he texts us, calls us. He'll tell us, I lost my baseball cap. And we're like, okay, buddy, what'd you do with, whatever. And then he'll call back 30, it was behind my door or whatever. And it's just like, okay, but it's really building relationships with these people. And yeah, so it's long-term. It's long-term.
Yeah, I would like to expound on the relationship we have with Chris. Like, we're all he has. Like, we are his family now, and he tells me that, that he misses his family, talking about me and Sam when we all go out of town. And I'll let him know before we go out of town, hey, we're going to go here. We're not going to be able to come by. And so it just kind of gives an example of what Sam means by it being the long game. Like, getting them off the streets, that's awesome, but then what? Because they didn't just get there,
right?
They need somebody to walk with them,
right? And so many people we meet on the streets, they'll say, I just need an ID, or I need a place to stay.
They tell you that when
yes.
you say, like, what do you need?
Right. And through conversation, right? I just need an ID. Or I just need, this or that. Or it's all material, right? And I always come back and I'm like, well, you've had that before. You had the job before. You had the ID before. You had a place to stay before, but you always lost it, or you always are going back to that. So we're dealing with, really deep-seated issues of people that have just gotten thrown to the curb, outcasts of society, that literally people like Chris and James, for over a decade, no one talked to them.
Yeah.
No one talked to them. Sweetest guys. But now we've befriended them, and they're part of our life. And that's what we need in the church at large. But we're so busy, or we're so caught up in our stuff, or, the leadership doesn't know how to train people to go and just talk to people at the grocery store, at the wherever you see these people. And I'm not saying everybody needs to go befriend homeless people, but it's relational. Christianity at its core is relational, if nothing else.
I think one of the things that you guys are really touching on is someone walked me through a while ago that there are different types of poverty. And the one that we tend to focus on most, I think, if we've not been in shoes that you guys have been in, which is having been homeless for a period of time and all that other stuff, is I think people focus so much on the material poverty that they forget about relational poverty, not having relationships. Yes. And I've heard it described that there's material poverty, spiritual poverty, motivational poverty, and relational poverty. And those other three, as I'm hearing your guys' story, it's like, wow, actually, like, these guys do actually have access to materials, right?
Yes.
They're just completely impoverished in the other three areas.
Yep.
And so you guys not only help provide that for them, you actually have to help counsel them through this, out of kind of like this deep state of confusion, to be able to actually even see which end is up. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
Did you guys have any other stories specifically that you wanted to share? I'm not sure if you wanted to talk about.
Let's talk about. You can talk about Debbie real quick and Emily if you want to.
Okay. So one day Sam and I were at the gas station. I'm not sure what we were doing, but we drove by.
Yes.
Or maybe getting a breakfast pizza. The breakfast pizza is probably more true.
Yeah.
So we drive by and I see this mom and daughter sitting on the curb, and I told Sam, I'm like, let's go see what's going on over there. And so we go over there, and
because the reason why we stop, they look a little disheveled, look a little dirty, and they have their belongings with them.
Yes.
And they're sitting on the curb, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Those are our people.
Yeah, we
We're
can
going to
spot
see
them. We
You're
can
running
spot
towards
them.
those people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we go over there, and what we learn is Deborah's the mother and Emily's the daughter. Emily is 42 years old, but she is a 5-year-old in her mind.
Literally.
Yes. So the father, Debbie's husband, died probably 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And when he passed away, they moved into an apartment, and some really awful things happened to Emily there. And so the mother, protecting her, decided we cannot stay here. And so that's when they started living in hotels. Well,
and the reason why they didn't go back into an apartment is because they were getting, very little money, government assistance, and that isn't 3 times the amount for an apartment to require for you to come back and get a new apartment. And they sure couldn't have the money for first and last month's rent.
Wow.
yes, yeah.
So they, just to reiterate then, so you're saying that because of the amount that was coming in, it's actually physically impossible for them to have an apartment.
This is a very common theme.
Wow.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was, yeah. So,
and just to touch on that, it's so, this, what we're touching on right now is an epidemic. These people are getting between $700 and $1,000 a month from the government, and they're so mentally handicapped, some of them, they can't be a door greeter at Walmart. Literally, right? And there are 0 places for them to go. It's like nothing I've ever seen. In our state, and I'm sure it's true here in Michigan also, the mental health system, the state hospitals have dwindled down to nothing. And the mentally ill are now released to the streets because the federal government got out of mental health care and gave it back to the states. And then the states are, they're not
doing a good job.
Yeah.
yeah. So back to the Emily and Deborah. So they went into the hotel, living in hotels, and in some of the rougher areas in Dallas, the hotels, those are usually full of prostitutes or people that are getting high. Some people that are just like Deborah and Emily. So they befriended a lady who they called it was their family. That's how they, addressed her. And she was pretty much robbing them, taking their food stamps, taking their money. So
promising them a lot of things that weren't true.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the plan was they were all going to get a townhome together. She took a majority of Deborah's check and a majority of Emily's check, and then the money just disappeared.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that's what left them on the streets when we found them.
When we found them, but just their money alone, they could stay in a hotel, depending on the hotel, anywhere from 15 to 20 days out of the month. But there was always at least 10 days of every month that they were on the streets, literally.
Yeah. And so we were actually able to get them into an apartment that we're friends with the people that run the apartment.
How old is Emily and Deborah?
I already said. Emily's 42 and Deborah's 65.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we were able to help them, but I'm still I talk to them. I still help them. Even though we got them into the apartment, I still, help them.
In contact.
And so we're in relationship with an individual that has bought an apartment complex in Dallas, and they're allowing low-income people to come in and live, but they're not requiring that first and last month's rent or 3 times the amount on their checks, and they're very forgiving in that way, especially if we're sending people there.
So I guess a couple things I want to do. I want to ask a little bit more about your guys' involvement with that, or what your vision is with them specifically. But I want to come back to that on the back end of this question, and it's that I hear often from people talking about the concept that people who are poor and destitute need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And you guys are the experts in the answer to that question. So that's my question is, do you believe, based on what you've seen in your experiences, that the people that you're talking about can pull themselves up by their bootstraps? And if not, or if so, can you walk that out a little bit?
Yeah. I 100% do not believe that. Whether you're dealing with mental illness, cognitive issues, drug addiction, alcoholism, or just a antisocial, rebellious person that has lived on the streets for so long that they have no social skills, they have no life skills, they have no. We run into people now, Nate, that are generationally that way.
Wow. Like second generation homeless?
Oh, no. Yeah. Third.
Wow.
Third and fourth generation drug addict, homeless, living on the government is the highest. You've arrived when you get your check.
Wow.
Mentality.
Wow. And when you mean you've arrived at like success when you get your government check.
Yes. Yes. And it just produces a mindset of everything should be given to me. That sort of thing. If it's either that mindset or they literally do not know. Some of the people we run into, man, literally have no grid for doing something better. Like doing something better for them is sweeping the parking lot at a gas station. That's a job for them. They've arrived. They have no grid for air conditioner, getting a check, working for their money, self-supporting, that's not even on their radar. Their parents didn't do it. Their grandparents didn't do it. They just don't even have a different understanding that there's something. You can tell them of all these different things, and it's so foreign, it's almost a different language. But I've noticed you can bring that person up into a higher reality just by the relationship, and they know that you used to be there, and now there's something different about you, and you don't live there anymore.
So the relationship on its own can create that.
Absolutely.
Did you want to add to that part?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the backgrounds, like their past. Some of them have felonies and just charges that that's a brick wall that they run into when they're trying to come up. Wow. And they just don't know. What's cool about what we do is that we educate ourselves on the resources for these people because they have no idea. And so when we come into the picture, we have the resource, the knowledge that they don't even know exists. And so we're able to present that to them. Even people that are sex offenders, we've met sex offenders that want help. but because of what they've done, there's no forgiveness there.
Wow.
There's no opportunity to give them another chance. But we do know of places to help people like that, and they don't even know that exists because they're so used to being shunned because of what they've done in their past.
Absolutely. I'm not sure how it is here in Michigan, but in Texas, if you have a felony, it's very hard to get a job, much less an apartment or somewhere to stay. Like you cannot. You can't.
So once you've made...
you make a mistake at 18, 19, 20 years old, it follows you and haunts you the rest of your life unless you have advocates or the knowledge of something different. These people, they've been told, you can't vote. You're an outcast. You go over there. You can't get a job. You can only day labor or whatever. And it produces hopelessness in an individual until they meet someone like us. Like their lot in life is now set in their mind.
Yeah. And so with what we're speaking on, it kind of just goes into like the burden or the vision that the Lord's placed into my heart. Can I just go into that? Okay. So I'm just going to use a story of how it all began. Before I started working in the homeless ministry, I actually worked inside of a shelter. And there were families in there. There were mothers that their husbands left them. They had 5 kids. They would go all the way through the program and they would get to the end of it and there was absolutely nowhere for them to go. So their only option was to stay in the shelter until they could find some type of housing or whatever. And even people with felonies, like me personally, I have felonies on my record. I can't rent an apartment. And even renting a home, you have to find someone who will work with you, and it's not easy.
Wow.
So I saw that all the time. These people, they go into these places and they get their lives changed, and then the next step, their option is to go back to where they came from. And so if that was someone that was homeless, they go back to the streets. There was one lady, she went straight back to the streets, and it wasn't too much later that she was found dead. Wow. And then there's people that go back into the environment that they came out of, and they go right back to what they were doing before. And so I just kept watching this happen, and I was just praying, asking the Lord, like, God, why is this happening? Like, you're bringing these people here and they're getting their lives together. I mean, I've seen women get their lives radically transformed by the Lord and go right back. And so the Lord put this burden in my heart to start this tiny home community where these women or men or even people coming out of prison that have found the Lord in there, and they just need a good, healthy environment to live in, and just be discipled in and do life with the people there and just grow and whatever that looks like. And so that's where the Lord gave me this vision, just to create a space for people to come live and do life and not necessarily be under this rigorous rule system, because that's kind of what they're already coming out of.
Yeah. We're looking to do a discipleship home, for just anybody really. But I think there is such a lack of true discipleship ministries. It's like we have these 6 months to 18-month programs all over the United States, and they got this time stamp on it. When X day has been met, you need to leave. And it's like, what do you do? Now they've came to the Lord, they've got this thing, and and that's part of my story too. In 2004, I went to a faith-based rehab, and I met the Lord. And got out, and I went right back to where everybody's doing the same thing. I had nobody to walk with. And it was in a few months I was back doing the same thing.
Yeah. So when you talk about this, maybe you guys can flesh this out a little bit. And I know that you're working on the details. So this is kind of a really high view of this, because this is something I didn't know about this part really. And so you guys right now are headed in the direction of saying, okay, we've been doing this for a while in your current capacity, where you're going out and meeting people and building relationships, and you're seing kind of the other side of the need, which is these people need community. And they need help, and they need people who will be advocates, and they need people who have the wherewithal to navigate the system and figure out how to get all of the resources. And now adding on community, friendship, support, people who've been there, done that. And so do you guys have any more of that vision laid out yet, or is that something that you're currently walking through trying to develop? I
think it's very much in the developmental stages, but we're tossing it around enough that our idea currently is we're not necessarily going to stop doing what we're doing. It's just going to be, they're going to be within an eye shot of us when we get home, kind of deal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're planning on living.
Yeah, communal living, in a sense, with these individuals.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, because, and we've seen true success stories also of people, from the bottom of the bottom to get better, and we're living epistles of that. We're living epistles of that, and not only us, but there are others. So we're not looking at you've got to live there forever kind of deal. But if you want to, it's okay. But we're more okay. You've lived a certain way for so long. Let somebody walk with you. Give them your life, and let them disciple you in such a manner that they decide when you're ready to leave.
Yeah, that's cool. So, and just to say that in a different way then, instead of having a designated 6 to 18 month program, you guys are getting them to the point where you're saying you can now stand on your own.
Yes.
And that might be 6 months. That might be
6 years.
6 years. But it's relational.
Yes.
As far as saying, like, man, we see that you can now handle this.
Yes.
Which I've seen you guys do that in other areas of your life. Just the process of walking people through to maturing in a variety of different ways. So that's something that you guys feel versed in.
Yes.
Yeah. And then another thing too, to kind of give to kind of explain what we're trying to do, I'll use a girl that I'm helping right now. She got hit by a car 2 years ago. She had to learn how to walk, talk. She was in a coma for 6 months. They told her mom to pull the plug, that she wasn't going to make it, but her mom refused to and prayed over her, and she woke up. And so she had to learn how to walk and talk again. One day she just calls me and is like, hey, can you please help me? And so here with someone like that, if my vision, my view is, if today I had the land and the tiny home, she would be someone that I would allow to go stay there, and I would just walk with her through life, and I would help her. I mean, she's taught herself how to talk. She's almost learned how to walk again, and it's just beautiful to watch. And then just to hear her tell me that she felt like God had forgotten her, and then I come in and I'm like, no, this is the Lord right here. Like, he sees you and he loves you. And just to walk beside her, it's just blessed my heart so much. But what's frustrating is trying to find, she's one of those that nobody would let her come there because of her handicap issues. And it's heartbreaking. These people, they're crying for help, but there's nothing for them. Like the mother that I was explaining with the 5 kids. Like, it took forever for her to find an apartment that would allow her to bring her 5 kids there. And so, yeah.
And then you also have to have, I think about the other part too. Like, I've talked a fair amount about, like, even navigating the healthcare system. So I'll use a totally separate example. But Natalie and I spent a lot of time going through, if we choose to get some kind of procedure, going through different hospital systems to like navigate the best pricing and all that other stuff. But we've got all our faculties about us, and we have resources, and we have time, and we have cell phones and all that other stuff. So for somebody to try to find housing in your scenario, they'll go to one place and it's kind of a shot in the air, and they'll just probably try to take the first thing that comes to them.
Well, imagine you're a single mom with 5 kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have no vehicle. You have no money.
Yeah.
You have really no knowledge of it. And someone tells you, hey, there's an apartment down the road. Go check that out. So you use what little money you have to take your 5 kids and you to the apartment, and they get, rejected. And how many times do you try that?
Yeah.
Until you're homeless and now your kids are taken and they're in the system and you have nothing.
Right. Right.
And you're just back in the system. Back in the system, right? And then someone comes along, finds out that you're homeless, right? Befriend to the whole scenario, right? Gets you off the streets. Now you're reunited with your kids and you're back in the system. But then once the day comes that you graduate, it's like it's all over again. So our vision is to we would love to have a main a property, 5-10 acres, whatever that might be, and have a main building, our house, and tiny houses around, or something like that, or an apartment complex, or whatever it is, and just really walk with people through all stages of life. And not only us, but our church community is very much on board and doing that with us. And so we do pastor a church community there in the Dallas area as well, and they're on board every bit with it.
So to just, I feel like we're kind of coming towards the end of this, but
Yes.
there's one or two other things I wanted to hit on. So just to highlight how big of an issue this is, you once told me about, you guys had a freeze in Dallas, and you talked about, can you give some numbers about either the amount of people who died during that freeze, or some other form of how many homeless people are in that area, just to give some numerical value to it?
So there are roughly 10,000 people homeless on the streets in Dallas County.
Wow.
Every night.
Just in Dallas County.
In Dallas County. And there are roughly 1,500 shelter beds.
Wow. So meaning when you have a freeze, there are 8,500 people who don't have space. That's what you're saying?
They do not have a space. But what we'll do is we will open the convention center or the state fairgrounds, and we've had up to 3,000 in one building. And that's an experience you need to come see.
3,000 in one building?
3,000 drug-addicted, mentally ill, homeless in one building.
Wow.
So,
and it sounds like without visions, like, so for sure there are some people who will hear that number, and there will some people who will have, there's two sides of the coin. Some people have compassion, and some people will say, well, then we have a problem. Like, basically, we're enabling. I know there will be both responses to that. But in the end, your story is telling me, and what you've seen is, unless you have people who want to be relational, that number will only grow. Like, you won't actually help people get to any level unless you're relational.
Yeah, I wanted to bring clarity on when he said we. It's not me and Sam. It's the ministry that we work for.
Got it.
Yeah, I want to clarify that.
Sure. Absolutely. But it's like any endeavor when you start out, when you realize, hey, man, You know, in a situation like this, I believe we're so good at sweeping things under the rug. We've swept it under the rug for so long. Now it's like this bomb that's went off, and it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know there was a bomb.
You mean because there's a lot more
Well, just the
homeless people now?
Yeah, a lot more homeless. I'm just talking about the general, the general maybe attitude of the church, especially the church in general. We've gotten so far away from real relationships and getting dirty with people. And we're so apt as a body, a society at large, to look at any flaw as a point of rejection and a place of rejection, instead of seeing flaws from the Lord's eyes and know that that person is just hurting, or they wouldn't be doing that. And you run to those flaws and say, hey, let me doctor you. Let me help you. Let me walk you through that. Like, you don't have to be hurt. You don't have to exhibit those behaviors, or since you are exhibiting those behaviors, what's going on? But absolutely, Christianity is relational. But we've made it 10:30 to 12 on Sunday morning is Christianity for a lot of people. And you walk in there with, you know, your Sunday best and your hat and your, you know, boutonniere and your corsage and all these things.
I don't know what church he's going to.
Well, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, and you know, and how are you doing, brother? I'm great, brother. How's the kid? Oh, they're great. Everybody's good. Okay, well, you know, and you sit in a row and you listen to a guy talk for 30 minutes and you're dismissed and see y'all next week. And that's Christianity and that's life. And you know, and these people are dying and going to hell by the millions because we won't get raw and real with our neighbor. Love your neighbor, man.
The I guess I want to take this part. I think it's a good time to land the plane. I don't know if you guys have anything like this set up, but I know that whenever I hear your story, I want to connect with it more. Are you guys at a place currently where there's a way for people who wanted to be able to connect more with either your vision or with you personally? And if not, that's okay, because I want to be a kind of an open door for that too, so we can always put stuff up later. But is there something that you guys are thinking along those lines?
Sure. Yes, we're currently working out a vision statement, if you will, for our next step. But we do have our 501c3 set up, and that's been a process. Awesome. Yeah, so that took and that was a process of, you know, several failed attempts, but we got it, and so that's really where we're at. We just really, you know, so what we've been doing on the 9 to 5, so to speak, right? Going out and hitting the streets and all that, it's just produced this need that we see, and now we're at the beginning of trying to, you know, formulate a plan to meet that need.
Go farther, basically.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen.
Well, so I guess I'll just throw this out, unless you, and then lob it over to you guys if you have anything that you want to say on the way out of it. But as you know, I've got relationship with you guys, and you know, if you guys are watching this and you know me, then I have a relationship with these guys. So if you are moved kind of in this direction as they keep unfolding their vision, I'll update some of this stuff too. But you can also reach out to me. I can you know, be a bridge between the two. And then I've never had a relationship with someone who does quite what you guys do or has quite the heart that you have. So it's really inspired me. So I don't know. I guess if you guys have anything you wanted to close with real quick. No? Okay.
We love you, Nate. And we just appreciate the time to just letting our hearts be seen and our vision be heard. Mm-hmm. And so we love you, and we so appreciate you. We're so thankful for you, and yeah, looking forward to more.
All right.
Amen.
Well, yeehaw.
Hey, yeehaw.
Yeehaw.
Amen.